Hello and welcome to another Drive-In Double Feature podcast. I'm Ryan.
I'm Nathan.
And this is the podcast where we talk about 2 movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before I get into anything, we have a Patreon over at patreon.com/Drive-In Double Feature podcast. This is a little fun area where we have some fun games, take a couple personality quizzes, judge each other's movie tastes, whatever we can do to make ourselves feel self-conscious. That's what we're doing over there at Patreon. So if you liked us, please check it out. But today, unfortunately, we have to talk about 1969's All Monsters Attack, aka Godzilla's Revenge, directed by quotations Ichiro Honda. And this is another stop in the Toho-a-thon, digging into the Toho well. And it is widely regarded as the worst Godzilla movie ever made, in terms of the Showa era, at least. It is very much a clip show, so this one's going to be a little difficult to talk about because a lot of the scenes that we've already talked about.
Yeah, we've already talked about. I went into this one knowing about this one, like a clip show movie. A lot of people hate it. And I will say, I don't think I hated it. Like, I at least had fun with it, but it's not a good movie. Like, I totally get, like, it's not good at all, but it's kind of funny sometimes.
As an abnormality, like, just like the absolute, like, I can't believe they did this type of thing. It's very entertaining.
Oh yeah.
But in terms of like, why is this a movie that, like, why did they even try this? But but reading into it and researching it, it does make somewhat of a sense of why they went in this direction. But before we get into that, I mean, we're just coming off of Destroy All Monsters, so, which is crazy to think about because they spent a ton of money and time and effort into that. And even that one, which is supposed to be like their big crossover movie, we both thought was very underwhelming.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
So you're like, okay, my expectations are pretty low at this point, and they still found some way to surpass even those.
It's kind of wild because, like, it's like supposed to be like a big send off and like, okay, Godzilla's back. What are we gonna do? And then they do this. Like, they don't even really have. Does Godzilla ever show up to do anything original in this movie, or is he literally only existing in clips?
No, he shows up and he does fight Gabara.
That's right. He fights Gabara in the end, but most of the time with Godzilla is literally just like uninspired, non-Godzilla stuff.
Right. So, just to give you some backstory, after Destroy All Monsters comes out, during this timeline, the Gamera series had just came out. And Gamera, we haven't really talked about Gamera at all. Gamera is a giant flying turtle. And the first one is very much like trying to do like what the first Godzilla did, where it's like epic, like black and white brooding type of movie. But then Gamera does like a complete 180 for the rest of its movie series, where it is very much like a kid's movie. It is fully for children, and they work on a very, very small shoestring budget. So, and then in fact, their fourth movie for Gamera, which we might talk about eventually.
Who knows?
But the fourth movie uses a lot of clips from previous ones. So it's pretty much a clip show movie where they just retake it. And in fact, so much so that there's actually, like, they use black and white shots from the first movie.
Wow,
and then just put it, like, without any hesitation at all.
Wow, they really, this one didn't even do that.
Yeah, be thankful. But the rival studio that made Gamera, they were very much just like, get it done fast, get it done cheap, like don't. And because of that, because they were able to have so much clips, they were able to save a ton of money on production. So Toho
saw dollar signs.
They're like, hey, we got all this extra Godzilla footage, why don't we just make that? And Godzilla, so like I said, Gamera was very heavily geared towards children, and Godzilla, he was kind of heading in that direction where he was starting to be geared towards children. Hadn't exactly like gone like full into like kiddie movie. I mean, it was getting really close, but it hadn't gotten all the way into there. But this one, it's very much like, this is a kids movie. This movie is for children. Like, this is not meant to be seen by an adult.
Yeah,
because it is very much just like, what the main character is a child, and it's revolves around his world, and then the rest of the movie is just using shameless stock footage from the other ones, just reusing entire fight scenes.
And I wonder what this is like for people who like had seen all these movies and went back and saw like, this is fun. I mean, there wasn't home video, so they probably weren't seeing a lot of these, but I'm sure they remembered like, oh yeah, I remember them fighting a mantis at some point.
That's what I'm like. So, I mean, they did use stuff from Son of Godzilla. They used it from Godzilla versus Ebirah, and they used some stuff from Destroy All Monsters as well. So I was just kind of wondering, like, we're not that far removed from these movies. I mean, it's like
not really
a couple of years maybe. So I guess maybe if you're like, oh, I'd like to see that again, but that's, I guess, like if you're like 10 years old and you watch those other movies when you're 6, you'd be like, oh wow, I get to see them again or whatever.
Yeah, I guess as a kid you probably don't mind as much.
But that's how it is though. They were kind of editing a lot of these movies down, and so that way it's just fight scenes.
Some of these movies would benefit from that, but not all of them, of course. But yeah, I mean, even with this one's a lot of like the kids storyline. I mean, this movie is also only an hour 10 minutes. It's not a lot of movie to watch, honestly.
No, very short affair. It does not. I can at least say that it's not a boring movie by any means. No. It is. It has a very short runtime, and there's like half the movie is this little kid's horrible living situation.
Yeah, it's really sad.
And then the other half is stock footage, and then like maybe 5-10 minutes at the most is like new footage they shot in monster suits.
And
yeah, I don't know, like at this one, like I'll be honest, this is my first time like actually sitting and watching it in full, because
really?
I knew it was a stock footage movie, so I was like, I didn't even bother watching it. So I never went out of my way to watch it. And sitting here, I still don't feel like I was missing out on anything really, but
yeah.
I was just trying to go with the mentality though, like, how do you think would you like this movie though if there was no other if Ebirah and Son of Godzilla did not exist? Do you think this would be a good movie then?
Oh, if it was just the storyline of the kid?
I'm just saying if everything in this movie was new footage, technically.
I think I would like it better. I wouldn't say that it would be a good movie. It would be fun, but definitely it being a clip show feels like such a cop out. It really does. Like there's just something about it, just like it almost feels like they're duping the audience. It's like, oh, you guys are going to see Godzilla anyway, so who cares? We're just going to throw some clips in there. I do think it would be a better movie if it at least had other stuff in it. Do you think so?
No, I don't
really
think it'd still be a good one, honestly. I mean, there's so much. goofy stuff in here. It's
Yeah.
just I don't think it works. I mean that and just like Mina as a main character too. It's like it's
Yeah,
it's
you're not a Minya head.
you know, Mina's fine, like in small doses, but as a supporting like character, maybe not so much. Maybe because I just watched the American version. Maybe that's why I don't
Yeah,
like
that
Mina. But we'll get into that in a minute. But just to give you a rundown of the plot, it's played by Ichiro. What was the kid's name again?
Oh, yeah, Ichiro Miki.
Ichiro. He's a little latchkey boy. Um, his family works constantly, and like his dad's always at work, his mom's always at work, and he's always left to fend by himself.
And he lives like in a polluted town, like it's like just at smog filled, and he's bullied too. It's actually kind of depressing.
Well, yeah, it's all these other abandoned kids that are just like bullying him.
Yeah, and his friend, the girl, just ups and leaves him. Like I noticed this like the first time I watched. It's just like he's about to be bullied and beat up, and she's like, "Oh well, I'm gonna go now, so bye," and she just is out of there.
Yeah, well, her mom comes and takes her, so that's why. But
Yeah, but still, it's like you couldn't tell your mom,
like, hey, he's being bullied, or hey, Ichiro, come with us, or whatever. They're living in this really terrible living situation, and what it's supposed to represent, or at least what Honda was going for, was just because it's supposed to be this new revolution in Japan where all these new buildings were coming up and the societies is being rebuilt from the World War II. But there's so much going on right now, and like the economy is so expensive, everything's so expensive there that families can't even afford to live off of one income. Like we're starting to get into the point where it's like they need dual income households. And Ichiro, I mean, they're very good natured parents. I mean, they're not like parents that are abandoning their child. It's just they literally have to work because his dad makes allusions to like they owe all this money and they're trying to do what's best for their son, but like because even the mom just like it was supposed to just be gone for till about dinner time, and then she gets a phone call being like, oh, I have to work all night, I'm not gonna be home till the morning.
So have the next door neighbor, the toy maker, help you out.
Yeah, that's so weird. Like they just depend on this one neighbor to take care of their son. I mean, thank God that guy is there.
Yeah, and if you thought, wow, this plot's in a Godzilla movie, yeah, it is. It feels like something out of maybe like, I don't know, what drama from the time, like kind of like a kid escaping to like an imaginary world because he's having to deal with, all this crap and he's home alone all the time. But now the imaginary world is Monster Island.
So that's the other point we have to discuss. So that's how Ichiro kind of escapes this lifestyle, is that he can imagine himself being on Monster Island interacting with all these different monsters. And so I was wondering, like, do the Godzilla movies exist in this world? Like, is he like a big fan of the Godzilla movies, or is he just a big fan of Godzilla the monster? Like the Godzilla would show up in Tokyo and he would be like, oh, there's Godzilla.
That's what I thought when I watched it. I thought all the monsters were real, and he was just a big fan of like the actual monsters, and he wanted to go visit Monster Island. That's the way I thought when I watched it.
I thought it was the opposite. I thought he saw the movies and that's why we're re-seeing the same
we're
fights.
Seeing the clips, yeah.
Because those are the fights that he remembers from the movies that he saw.
But that's like if Indiana Jones 5 is gonna be like I don't know, like just somebody being like, yeah, I saw Indiana Jones 1 through 4. Let's think about if I was Indiana Jones in these movies.
Right.
It's very dumb.
Like he just imagined Indiana Jones was his best friend from the movies, but
yeah, and they just green screen him in.
Right. But he imagines himself on Monster Island. He sees all the giant mantises from Son of Godzilla. and Minya rescues him. So Minya's in this movie. He's back,
Welcome
and
back, Nina.
unfortunately, you're gonna have to say goodbye to him too, because this is the very last Minya movie.
Probably for good reason. Mina's looking real dumb in this one. This is so goofy looking.
So there's two different Minyas in this movie, because there's like the Minya body costume, which is again played by the same suit actor, Little Man Monchan, and he he does like the little gimmick where he can like walk around and his mouth can move like a little bit, but then there's some like extreme close-ups of Minya's face, where it's like got fully movable eyes and it looks like a little hand puppet, like a Muppet
kinda, yeah. It's just really silly, and like he talks about how his dad is like mean to him, and it's like, oh, my dad doesn't think I have courage. He wants me to fight all my own battles, which he sounds like a kid in the Japanese version.
Well, before we get into the American dub, I want to save that for the whole separate section.
Okay.
But I wanted to ask, what do you think of Minya's voice in the Japanese dub?
It didn't annoy me. I thought it was all right. I really don't have much to say. I think it's just silly that this character has full lines. Minya just has full lines, just talking about what's wrong with you, buddy.
It's clearly a woman that's doing the voice, but to me it's about like any other like anime where it says like because they use that a lot, where they get like women to play young boys or something because their voices are so higher, and it's easier to get an adult to act than a child.
Kid, yeah.
Well, should we talk about the dub now, or should we wait, you think?
I guess we can get into the dub, just about like maybe the dubbing. So I mean, there is an American version of this movie,
right? And I do want to say there is some differences, some big ones. One, you know what the biggest thing I noticed, Nathan,
what?
Compared to all the other ones?
What?
They finally spelled Ichiro Honda's name right.
Yes, okay, that's funny. That's really funny. They actually did. They did one thing correctly. Good. It only took them like how many movies into this franchise are we?
Like 9 movies it took them to finally spell it from like Ino-Shiryo Honda.
Ichiro Honda, like horrible. Yeah, well, good.
And we didn't mention too the beginning song for Godzilla.
Yeah. Godzilla.
Awful.
Oh, it's annoying. It's and it uses a kid chorus, which I hate children's choruses. So like, it's
shots fired.
I know. Oh no, I was gonna say, but the dubbing is the biggest part of this one. Oh, it's so bad. I noticed this right off the bat when the two kids are talking to each other, and whoever dubbed the little girl, like, she didn't even have the ability to speak. Like, she would say lines and like, what do you call it whenever you murmur to yourself? Just like, I don't.
Shirya.
Yeah.
I have to go see my mother.
and what Ryan's doing is exactly what it is in the movie. It is horrible.
And then they get like Ichiro, who in the Japanese movie is an actual little boy, but they get like a nasally woman to like voice him. I had to go see my parents.
Yeah, it's so silly. There's another weird moment with the toy maker where cops show up to their apartment and there's a glove. It doesn't make sense to me. It's like a toy glove that moves by itself, and like in the Japanese version it says, "Help! Give me the police! Help!" But in the American version, what does it say? Oh God, I had it written down. It says, "Support your local police. Support your local police." Why is this glove talking about the police in the first place? What kind of toy is this?
It's like the thing from the Addams Family.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just really silly moment.
Well, getting back to what we were doing originally. So, like I said, Minya in the Japanese version is clearly voiced by like a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, Oh my god! Like
They made him sound like goofy,
like literally goofy. Like it literally sounds like goofy. Like oh gosh, I gotta get out of here. Like
who thought this was a good idea? Just this goofy's eyes moving back and forth.
The most infamous lines is like I always hear in my head is like what you're talking about. Like Godzilla said I should learn to fight my own battles.
That's the line. Such a good line.
Godzilla says that I should learn to fight my own battles,
Yeah, it truly is awful. Like what you just heard, it is just it's funny. It's so funny. It's like a so bad it's funny kind of deal. Like, like you're laughing, but it's because it's a garbage.
It's unbelievable. Like somebody was just like, whoever did, it's like the same people that dubbed Godzilla's Godzilla Raids Again, which was so like monumentally awful that they were just like, oh yeah, that sounds good. I mean, which is so weird because like honestly, like the last couple of Godzilla movies, like the dub's been pretty decent. I mean, it's like
I think we said that pretty consistently these past few times. Is like, oh, the dubs are actually fine. Wasn't there one where the dub was actually like really good?
Yeah, I mean, I remember Mothra had a good dub. I remember King Kong Escapes had a decent one too.
Yeah, it's weird. This one also falls in the trap where because I think when a dub's good for these movies, they don't really put on a racist accent. This one they go full in on a racist accent, and it's just like just like Godzilla, the second Godzilla movie did that too, and they were dropping banana oil in the lines too.
I know.
Yeah, just the worst you could get.
It doesn't make any sense whatsoever, and like the quality control is not there at all. No, and everyone just clearly does not care. I mean, I want to read one quote that was in David Callett's book, because once again, I'm citing the same source as David Callett's book, and I'm citing Big Action Bill's video for All Monsters Attack. But I do want to read one quote from Ichiro Honda, that says, the company wanted a lot of monsters, but they told us they had no money. We decided to take on one of the social problems at the time, the latchkey kid. We set it up later that the kid liked monsters, so he pretends and makes it all real. Just to give you other aspects too, of like the behind the scenes, Eiji Tsuburaya, the effects wizard who had been not only doing TV shows, but he's been in it with Godzilla since the very beginning of the whole entire series, supervising the special effects. He's like not doing good health wise. He's credited for this movie, had almost zero input on this movie, but he had such respect that they gave him the credit for it.
Wow, that's crazy. Like he was that respected.
I want to read one other passage though from the book. Give me 1 second. Just to give you like the mood at the time. So Tsuburaya was on his deathbed receiving honorary credits on films he never touched. Cinematographer Hajime Koizumi and assistant director Koji Kaijiti, both important collaborators of Ichiro Honda, had been fired. Shinichi Sekizawa, the main screenwriter, openly complained he had run out of ideas. Honda had lost interest as the films had become increasingly ridiculous. So without the prestige that the Godzilla movies once had, all interest in the movie had dried up.
That makes sense.
So we kind of made the allusion to it in the past where the wheels are starting to get a little shaky, and this is where it's starting to like
it just breaks down.
Just totally breaks down. Like nobody could have given less of a crap about this one. And but if you want to hear something funny, apparently this is one of Ichiro Honda's favorite Godzilla movies.
Yeah, because I mean, I understand that because Ichiro Honda, he really liked making dramas and stuff like that. And I think like I can see where he's coming from with the kids stuff. I do. It's just not done very well.
Yeah, I mean, so we get the Minya stuff. We see the little fight scenes, and honestly, you can go back and watch them again. It's the same exact fight scenes. But the funny thing is that they replayed the spider scene, the Kumanga spider fight from Son of Godzilla, and they replay the Ebirah fight from Godzilla versus Ebirah.
Yes.
And it's funny because there's 3 different suits of Godzilla, and for the new stuff they shoot, they just reuse the Destroy All Monsters suit, and then they just have the Son of Godzilla suit too, and which is the worst Godzilla suit by far. It just looks, seeing it again, I'm just like, it looks so bad.
It does, yeah. It looks awful. Not only that, I could tell that they were shot on different film grain. The Ebirah film, when they showed scenes from that, personally, I could tell like it was a much grainier film stock than like what was there. So it was very jarring. It was nice seeing Ebirah again. I do love him very much. It was a great fight.
I wonder though, because I didn't know how much of it they were to replay. And I was waiting for the scene where he rips out Ebirah's claws, but I guess that was too violent.
I guess so. No, instead they kept the volleyball scene where they knocked the rock at each other.
Oh, there was one point I laughed at. Like, so we do get like a very split second where the kid is, once he's on Monster Island, he sees all the monsters, like not just, so we see like Gorosaurus. He's like, oh, Gorosaurus, Anguirus, Manda. And then
I love this.
And then he's like, and it's funny because he's like, "Oh, giant condor!" It's the bird from Ebirah, and they see him dying again.
Yeah, he dies. It cracks me up that this kid just is like, giant condor. Yeah. But in the American version, I don't even think he gives it a name. And he's like, oh, look, who's that? And I think he actually gives like all the monsters like gibberish names in the American version. It's not even their actual names.
It's Angulus, I think, is one.
Yeah.
Goron or something like stupid like that. And
but yeah, I mean, I don't want to redo all the clips because it is literally just clips of other fights that we've already talked about before. Like, it's so weird.
I know. So we're gonna have to like move on. Okay, so I will say, if you want to hear our thoughts from Ebirah and Son of Godzilla, go back and re-listen to those episodes because we do talk about those fight scenes.
Oh yes. Yeah, we do. And Ebirah is a really good movie. That's one of my favorites. So
I like Son of Godzilla. You weren't a big fan of that one, but
yeah.
But anyway, so what do we have to go on? The only 2 other things we have to go on is the human plot line with Ichiro and the new monster. So Ichiro has a new. He's made up a monster in his mind, and that is Gabara. And that's what he even calls like his bully, even though that's not his name. But
is it not the bully's name? Because I thought it was. I thought his bully's name was Gabara. I was like, that's so silly.
No, I don't. I think he literally calls his bully Gabara.
No wonder he's getting bullied.
He's like calling him like monster names.
Yeah.
But yeah, Gabara shows up, and Gabara looks
so silly.
Oh man. There's very differing opinions on what this monster is supposed to look like. There's one that he's supposed to look like an Oni, like a Japanese demon, but the very consistent one is that he is supposed to be a frog monster.
Okay, I guess I could see it.
Like with the bulbous skin and everything, with all the warts and stuff. What do you think?
Huh? Oh, he looks dumb. He looks goofy. He looks like a cartoon character, especially his mouth, how it kind of just like, it looks like he has like no chin, almost like his mouth is connected to his neck. It's bad. It's really bad.
It does not look good at all.
No.
It easily, well, I was going to say, I think the only one that probably looks worse is probably like King Kong's outfit from Godzilla, King Kong versus Godzilla. That's probably like the one that looks worse, but
this one's pretty rough.
That one does not look good, especially like he has like a weird patch of hair on his head too.
Yeah, it's like
just
purple, right?
no, it's orange. He has
That's
like
right, it's orange.
He
Yeah,
has like orange hair and he has a purple horn.
that's right.
And he's supposed to be that, but he has this cackle laugh, and it's
Mhm.
that, and it sounds like this, which is supposed to be a taunting type of laugh, and they kind of use real laughter and they kind of distorted it. And so that's why they're trying to go for it, because Gabra is supposed to be a imagination of the real life bully that Ichiro was facing. So they wanted it to have like this kind of taunting laugh, and Gabra just beats the absolute crap out of Minya.
I know. It's kind of funny. But yeah, Minya gets like, he gets absolutely destroyed.
It is so shocking, some of the scenes. It's like Gabra has like a shocking ability where he's able to electrocute Minya. So he's electrocuting Minya, he just like freaking uppercuts him right in the face, and just like, and Minya goes crashing down.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. But what I found the funniest with the fights is the final fight, where Minya actually, he gets up the courage to fight him, and Gabra is standing on like a seesaw type device. This might be a little too later in the movie, but I just love it so much.
Yeah, I mean, it all bleeds together. It's fine.
But Minya jumps on one end of the seesaw and launches Gabra in the air, and they decided to just do like a still shot of Gabra, but then just spin it to make it look like this giant monster is flipping comically through the air.
I hate to make you do more work, but there's one sound in there too where when he hits it, he goes like wow 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 wow.
That's like a video game character.
Yeah. So, but it's so dumb because like, what if Gabra didn't step on that log or whatever? Like,
no, Gabra was just that dumb. Was like, oh, a log, I'm gonna stand on that.
Yeah, like at what point would, like, if that didn't happen, then what would you do? And just so silly. And luckily though, I mean, like Minya does start to get a little bit of some hits in. Yeah. And he starts to get, but like Minya tries to run away too, and Godzilla's like, no, get in there, fight.
Just watching this kid get the crap beat out of him.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happens. It's like it's like in Son of Godzilla, like, remember, like they kicked a rock and hit him like right in the face.
That's right.
And he was a newborn baby too.
And I thought that was the funniest thing. It was pretty good.
And anyway, Godzilla does show up, and they do finally beat up Gabra. They don't kill Gabra because it's a kids movie. Gabra just kind of like just limps away.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the extent of all the Monster Island action, unfortunately, and not new content. So
yeah, it really sucks, especially because now that I think about it, the kid's storyline is just really bad with the bank robberies. So like this whole movie, they're hinting at it, these bank robbers. There's like this huge heist that's going on. And somehow the main kid ends up with the driver's license of the bank robber.
Yeah, because they're hiding out in an abandoned building, and it's an abandoned building that Ichiro loves to play in.
Yeah.
And he just finds the bank robber's ID laying on the ground, and they see him running off, so they follow him home. And because he's just a latchkey kid and he doesn't have any supervision at home, they just break in and kidnap him.
Yep. Yeah, and they kidnap him, and then the only way he can escape is through his imagination. That's how he gets up the courage to cover up a giant hole in the abandoned building with newspapers. So it's almost like Home Alone in a way. He makes these two just like get hurt.
I was gonna say the same thing. I'm like, oh, this is like Home Alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Which makes this a Christmas movie.
I would say so. Yeah, I agree. But it's crazy. This sounds like a funny storyline. I honestly found it kind of boring.
It's very uneventful. I mean,
Yeah.
if it sounds exciting, I mean, it's really not. I mean, I know we're kind of making this movie sound really goofy. There's really not a whole lot worthwhile to be in there, to be quite honest with you. But because like he goes and because all the monster stuff we were describing is intercut with this storyline,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it's like Ichiro is very timid and he's very scared, and then like you said, he by the end of his imagination where Minya stands up to Gabra, then
Mhm.
he's like, oh, I have the courage, and he stands up to these guys that have knives and like are threatening to kill him and everything, and like
Mhm.
they eventually he does get away and the police show up and the toy maker guy is there to like save him, and he's like, what happened, why did you fight them? And he just, I felt bad for him because he's like cries out and he's like, I had to.
I mean, what else was I supposed to do?
Right.
Because they were going to kidnap him. I mean, of course, they had to drop the line, oh, killing him would be pointless, but let's use him as leverage.
Right, like,
Yeah.
so they do get captured, and then there's like a really super depressing scene afterwards where he's with his mom, and his mom and him are having breakfast together after the next day, and she's aware of everything that's happened, and
Mhm.
she makes the promise that I'm never going to work nights again. I'm just because I want to make sure you're home. And he says, don't worry, I can take care of myself. And
Yep.
then like after he leaves, like she starts crying because she wants to be a better mother, so she feels like a huge failure as a mother.
Yeah.
And it's like she wants to stay home more, but she literally can't because she needs the money.
Yeah, it feels like not something out of it feels like an Ozu movie, like something that would happen in that, like, oh, just like your mom crying because she literally can't do anything. It's depressing.
It's such a bleak ending for that storyline. And
Yeah.
I was gonna say, after he runs out of, as he's running out of the apartment building,
Mhm.
he's like the goes up to these reporters, and the reporters are like, how'd you get out? And he's like, oh, Minya helped me. And they're like, huh, Minya? And then he ran out, and then the toy maker guy was standing there. He's like, oh, well, just like how we have gods, kids have their own gods, so Minya is like a god to this kid. I'm like,
Huh?
what is
Just
that?
like,
Is that what we're,
yeah, I guess.
I don't know if that's what we were going for,
Yeah.
but okay.
But no, yeah, that's weird. And the movie doesn't even end there. It goes on a little bit where the kid does face up to his bully. But what's weird is he ends up doing that, and then he plays a trick on this like just guy who's painting a billboard and gets paint on this guy's face. Like, so what? He's a bully now. He has courage, so now he becomes a bully.
So that's that. So they do build up this scene because that's like one of the things that happens in the beginning of the movie is like the
Mhm.
bullies are like, oh, well, if you're so tough, go honk that the bike horn, and that way it freaks out the painter and he falls. And
Mhm.
he's like, no, I don't want to do that. And then that's what the payoff is. He actually does do it this time, and the bullies that, because he beat up the bully, but now that he did that, he's like, oh, now this guy is cool. Like, we want to be friends with this kid. Like,
Yeah, I think they
and
say, "All right, baby," like,
yeah, baby.
yeah, which is funny.
And that was like the thing. It's like, is he a bully now? Is, like, what's the deal? And but I don't, because he does say sorry, Mr. Painter, or whatever. So at the end, so
Yeah.
I don't think he's a bad kid, but
Well, I
that's
do.
well, you're a very harsh critic of children.
Yes, I am. I guess.
Okay, so I know you didn't listen to it, but I actually listened to the
The commentary.
for this movie, which was done by Richard Puscateri,
Mhm.
and I had no idea who he was because I had recognized all the other Godzilla nuts that have done it, like David Khaled or Steve Rifle or whatever, and this commentary is nuts. Like,
Really?
I it is one of the worst commentaries I've ever heard for
That's
a movie.
funny. Is it just some random guy? Who is it?
Well, no, he did write a guy, like he did research, like, you know, kaiju, and he's written like a couple of books.
Okay.
But I'm like, you know, like I said, I had no idea who he was, but this guy sounds like bored to tears when he's like describing that. And he's barely talking about like behind the scenes facts. He's literally narrating what's on screen.
I always think that's so funny.
And like, and then he like also makes it into like mystery science theater type of stuff, like adding in his own jokes to the movie. So there's a scene where there's a scene where Ichiro, like when he runs out of the abandoned building and like he's being chased by the bullies, the guy's like, that looks like a set to me, but I know it isn't. And okay. And then thanks. And there's another scene where they have like, there's like a scene that Ichiro imagines himself being on the plane, like going to Monster Island. And it's like, okay. And like Ichiro like runs to like the back of the airplane, and then he runs to the back of the airplane. The guy's like, there's Ichiro checking to see if they're have any more honey roasted peanuts in the back. And then
what?
And then he runs to like the front of the plane, and now he's going to check to see what the in-flight movie is.
He really thought about that before for making the movie. Sorry, the commentary. If you get hired to do a commentary, wouldn't you want to bring something good to the table, like just like some info or something?
I mean, he did have like the extent of his info that I learned, you know, this is before I read the book and all the other videos, is you know, he mentioned, you know, them being inspired by Gamera, which I'm like, okay, at least I learned one fact from this, I guess. And then he does mention is like, oh, well, this actor was in other movies. And I'm like, this was an other, which, I mean, it's fine, but like, I don't ever consider those like like I can just go on IMDb and learn the same facts about it. But he would be like, there'd be some scenes where like there'd be like a noise, and he'd be like, "What was that?" like pretending like he's like the character. And there was another time too where he was like, there's Nakajima. He's in the Godzilla suit again for this movie. I think he was Godzilla and a couple of other movies. I'm not sure. And like, what? You're just guessing? Like,
I think that's something that if you're doing a commentary on a Godzilla movie, that's something you should know.
And then he says, like, when we do see like the scene where Minya learns how to shoot atomic breath instead of the little smoke rings, and it's like, there's Minya. He knows how to shoot the atomic breath, but now he has bad breath now. And he kept calling the atomic breath. He's like, he shoots bad breath in his face.
Okay. Here, have a mento, kid. Something like that. I don't know.
It's just so bad. I'm like,
that sounds like another way to make this movie even worse.
I kept listening to the commentary just because it wasn't boring. I'm just like,
bizarre.
It was just so bizarre. I'm like, this guy is literally just like, it would either be like dumb jokes like that, or like him narrating what's on screen. Like, Ichiro is on Monster Island. There's Anguirus and there's Gorosaurus. Yes, I could see.
I can watch the movie too. I have eyes.
There's another scene where when Ichiro's talking to his little girlfriend or whatever, and he's talking about the monsters, and she runs away, like runs off to school, and he's like, and there's every woman's reaction when us Godzilla fans talk about Godzilla.
Maybe just to you, buddy.
I I get all the ladies with my Godzilla knowledge.
I know you're always dropping your Godzilla facts everywhere I go. Every woman around the corner, you're just dropping Godzilla bombs. You're doing your Minya bad breath joke, and it's just like zing! It hits every time.
But I just so bad.
It's funny.
Even at the end of the movie when he does. He runs away, he does the gag to the painter, and he's like, and there goes Ichiro, who's now a bully, and he's gonna go, him and his new bully friends are gonna find some other nerdy kid to bully.
Okay. He didn't have to do it sounds like he just wants to be a member of Mystery Science Theater.
I literally, I'm like, I don't think this guy knows what a commentary understands.
I don't think so.
The importance of a commentary, like I said, like that. I still think about that David Callett one where when he was doing it for, like, he sold me on the idea of like why the English version of Godzilla King of Monsters was so good, and I'm like, yeah, this guy's making a whole lot of sense. Like, I get it, and like, and this one is just like, why even waste the effort to do something like this?
Exactly. Yeah, no, I don't think so. Not worth it.
So I will say, if you do get the opportunity to check it out, but overall, I can't lie, it's the worst one we've seen so far, and I mean, there's other ones that were not great, but this one I think is actively bad.
Yeah, I think this one is just like, if I was to like say this is a not recommend like fully, I say it's a so bad it's good movie, but it's still, at the end of the day, it feels like a waste of time. Even then, like the laughs I had, it's still not.
It's good. Not worth it. I mean,
and it's a repeat.
It's something you've already seen before if you've watched all the other Godzilla movies, and this is definitely not a starting point I'd recommend to anyone. It's definitely not one where you can just pick up and go type of thing. So I don't know on what level I could recommend this as a movie, which I really can't, because even the new stuff that was shot for this movie is still not worthwhile. So
no,
I hate to be that brutal, especially with something like Godzilla, because I do like the series so much. But I think even overall, like, nobody really wanted to make this movie. But I will say it did. So this is the first movie to gross under 2 million tickets sold.
Wow.
1.4 million tickets were sold for this movie, but
it's still a lot.
For the production costs they spent, that's not necessarily a bad number.
Yeah.
Because the budget was very low. This movie came out, it was originally going to be released in America as Minya.
Really? Okay, like this is his movie.
It was going to be called Minya, Son of Godzilla, but because it had Son of Godzilla in the title, they're like, well, that's really confusing. So
Godzilla's revenge isn't any more confusing.
Oh yeah, I'm like, what the hell is he getting revenge against?
Yeah, it makes no sense.
So doesn't make any sense there either. But it came out in America and it was double billed with the movie Island of the Burning Damned, which is another Terrence Fisher movie reuniting Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing.
Oh, rad. Okay, if that's the second movie, at least you sat through that. You got to do probably a cool one, but who knows? Maybe we'll do it one day.
Yeah. So, like I said, can't recommend this one. Would you give this a recommend, Nathan?
No, don't watch it. No, there's much better Godzilla movies, and I think this one is entirely skippable.
It's 1,000% skippable, and
yeah.
But I'm very excited about what's next in the Godzilla series, but we'll get to that a little later.
Okay. Better not be late this time.
Better not be. So we're going to shut the book on Toho for now. But Nathan, what are we going to be talking about next time?
All right, Ryan. We are going to be doing a Herschel Gordon Lewis movie. We're doing the
Oh no.
we're gonna be doing 1970s The Wizard of Gore, which is playing right now on Arrow Player, and it's also available on Tubi for free.
Terrific. Cannot wait whatsoever. Well, if you have any memories of Godzilla getting revenge, let us know over in the email at drive-in-double-feature-podcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at DIDFpod, and check out the patreon.com/drive-in-double-feature-podcast. But until next time.
Until next time.
怪獣様のおとりだかっこよくなんでもぶっ飛ばせゴッゴジ